here. I just want to remind you that I've just enabled the Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout the duration of today's session, please pop your questions in the Q&A tab so we can keep track and get to those at the end of today's session. Additionally, at this time, we won't have time to go through troubleshooting questions as it relates to A2A support, but we can get to those questions after today's session. So if you do have a more troubleshooting like question, we can record those and get back to you later. But for the time for today, we're not going to be taking those live, just as a heads up. But again, please pop those questions in the Q&A tab. And if you just have regular banter you want to share, feel free to pop that into the chat. Without further ado, I'm going to pass things over to our presenters. Thanks all.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Isabella. Hi, everyone. My name is Neil Maskar. I'm from the product marketing team, primarily focused on our API management products. And Manan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Manan, and I'm on the MuleSoft product team overseeing the connectors portfolio for Anypoint and Flow. Thanks for being here, folks.
Cool. So just a quick run through of what we're going to be talking about. First, I think we're going to talk about something that we haven't talked enough about today, and that's kind of the implications of everything that's going on right now in our world of technology, and then not all of the implications, but the ones relevant to the business. And then we'll talk about agent-to-agent protocol, and then our new capabilities as it relates to A2A, so our new connector as well as support for it in Flex Gateway. And then we have a quick demo and can take some questions. So this diagram, I'm sure everyone on this call is very familiar with. This is our reference architecture for MuleSoft, and I think what we so it's composable, it's modular, it's easily adaptable. So as you bring on new systems or new client-facing applications like a new website or mobile application, you can easily adapt to those scenarios. And I think the part we don't really talk about is this is primarily REST-driven architecture, right? And it's client-driven as well. And so the good news is, as we think about moving into the future, this is really kind of an incremental evolution to support agentic AI. All of that investment that you've made into these REST services, et cetera, all of these Mule investments can just be repurposed through an action layer to support agentic AI, and whether that's using the topic construct that supports Agentforce or MCP protocol for agents more broadly. And then eventually, I think where we are going to go eventually is to this type of world, this sort of multi-agent architecture. And I think that the big shift with this previous slide, this previous version of the architecture, and this one as well, that we don't think about enough is how there's a change in how tightly coupled systems are together, right? Contracts between systems used to be very rigidly defined, right? Say through a WSDL file, and or it's out other ways, right? And we're moving to this world where everything operates less on a less defined basis. And so as we think about re-architecting our enterprises, we need to think about all of the implications for security and control that come from having a number of systems that are less tightly coupled, both within your organization and outside of your organization. And so in that future, this future state will ultimately have domain-driven agents that work together to automate processes to solve customer problems. And these agents might not even be in your organization. They could be anywhere. And I think the other implication of this architecture is it's actually, it's illustrated here kind of in this top-down fashion, but this architecture could work in multiple directions, right? There's a bidirectionality inherent to it. And so ultimately, this, I think at a high level, at a 30,000 foot level, there's these two major shifts that we're thinking about here. One is the shift from deterministic to probabilistic computing. I always have trouble saying both of those words. But if you think about it, since the very inception of computers, we think back to like the Turing machine or ENIAC, going way, way back, we've always had consistent input resulting in consistent output. And if you built an architecture on top of a bunch of deterministic systems, for the most part, those systems would also act in a similar manner. But as we shift to a probabilistic world, consistent input might not result in consistent output. And so obviously that opens up a lot of power for your enterprise, the ability to solve less clearly defined problems through agents, but it also opens up some risk, and you need to think about those risks. And then secondly, client server to distributed and autonomous. And as I mentioned on the last slide, we're moving from this world where that's client server driven, where the relationships between systems are much more clear. And in this distributed and autonomous world, there's more bidirectionality to relationships. And as I mentioned earlier, there is less rigid coupling between systems, and the protocol adherence is less strict than we would think about it in traditional terms. And so this really results in three key problems: security, performance, and compliance. So thinking about security, there are a few things. One, there's more surface area to protect, and it's not even clear exactly what that surface area might be. Right, you need to think about bidirectionality increases the amount of surface area you need to think about protecting. And you also need to think about protecting your enterprise against edge cases, right? Where a hallucination, say, sort of in a consumer interaction with a generative AI agent or a generative AI application might be fine, but in the enterprise context, those interactions, the edge cases need to all be accounted for. And so you need to think about protecting the server from the client, but also the client from the server, really implementing true zero trust and using even more diligence as thinking about security throughout your architecture. Secondly, in terms of performance, so everyone in the last couple years has really become accustomed to this incredibly high level of performance with these agentic systems. And so we need to ensure consumer level availability and performance of both your internal facing and external facing agents, while at the same time dealing with applications that might be operating in a manner that's less predictable in terms of execution, because they're working together in ways that you may have not exactly predicted. And then because their execution is less predictable, their corresponding demands on traffic are also less predictable. And so it's an interesting challenge when you think about maintaining responses about applications to the, at the millisecond level while dealing with the unpredictability inherent in these architectures. And then finally, compliance. So obviously it goes without saying, it's pretty hard to maintain compliance in this environment. You have these loose coupling of these agentic applications with loose contracts between systems. And so we really think it's important to build guardrails into your architecture. And this is where we think we can help here at MuleSoft. And just a quick note, so the way we're thinking about AI here, and everyone on this call probably kind of has a sense already, is there's kind of two aspects to it. One, thinking about using AI to improve our products. So at the design time, how can we use AI to help make things easier for you to use and faster to build, but then also helping you at the runtime side. So helping you adopt AI across the enterprise. And so inserting, making it easier to create new AI agents, but also insert governance and control into your architecture to support those deployments. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Manan to talk about the protocol itself.
Thank you, Neil. And and Neil, you talked about a few of those key problems, and I think the A2A protocol is a great solution to solving or introducing a series of tools that can help us solve that. So effectively, it's a mechanism or a protocol to help enable agents to collaborate naturally in an unstructured manner. There's different standards available through HTTP, SSE, which is effectively server-side events, and JSON RPC. It can, as a protocol, support longer running tasks, help with task management, and discovery capabilities as well. And along with that, there's benefits like standardizing the interoperability between the vendors, organizations, and allowing different agents to interact with each other without shared context or memory as well. It also enables flexibility for different scenarios. For example, you've got, well, I think we can jump to the next slide. So for example, at the bottom, you have different systems which represent your backend systems. These are effectively the systems that can now start talking to each other. But as Neil covered in one of the previous slides, we recognize that we need some sort of a hierarchy or some sort of structure present out here. Let's talk for a moment on why that is relevant as well. So today, let's say that if you were to build a single agent, that agent would have access to, for example, Salesforce, one of your LLMs, another vector database. But at the end of the day, to successfully complete what it needs to, it may need access to more systems as well. Next slide, please. However, what will happen out there is it will start becoming a lot larger, a lot more complicated, effectively the monolith of a system. And if you do try to connect it out there, there will be some technical limitations. Technical limitations, monoliths, okay, sure, you can work through those. But the bigger challenge out here is security risks. What could happen if you give one single agent access to all of your information, right? Your critical company information, critical customer information. So that's kind of where we recommend going through a multi-agent approach, much like what Neil covered. All right. So that also helps tee us up for MuleSoft's direction for this, where we've launched A2ASupport from a couple of different perspectives. The first one is going to be through a connector, and then the second one is going to be through Flex gateway policies that can help govern the connector and different workflows. So effectively, you've got the ability now to build workflows. You've got the ability to build multi-agent workflows, enable agent discoverability, and add agentic security by default with clicks with the existing policies that MuleSoft has just released. Now, what this effectively enables is customers can go ahead and add server as well as client-side implementations for their connectors today. You can introduce listeners, you can generate agent cards, and this works with agents that are developed on and off Mule. Also works with agents that are already following the A2A protocol, but if not, the current Mule configuration allows them to talk to other agents even if they are not on the A2A protocol. That's a massive win for what you can do with the Mule agentic experiences. Let's talk a little bit more about how we can now start governing these agentic experiences that you're going to be building with Mule, specifically in the form of Flex Gateway. Neil, I'll pass this back over to you.
Cool, thanks. So moving forward, as we think about these architectures, Flex Gateway is really critical to security and control for security and control perspective. And so, in case you missed it, earlier this year we launched a managed version of Flex Gateway. Important to note that everything we're talking about in terms of policies today applies both to the managed Flex Gateway as well as the original version of Flex Gateway. And so obviously managed Flex Gateway is a fully managed solution. It runs on Cloud Hub 2.0, and so it automates all of the operational aspects, helping it easier to deploy, and it auto scales, and pretty easy to get started with, launches in minutes. And so as you think about inserting gateways into your architecture, we think Managed Flex Gateway is a great option to do so, but also the original Flex Gateway is great for this as well. And so we, from an API management perspective, are really looking to think about how we can extend governance and control to any agent interaction with MuleSoft. And so as you can see in these two very simplified architectures, we see Flex Gateway being in line to both MCP interactions, which I think we've talked about previously, but then also in A2A interactions as well, to help everyone govern, secure, and control, as well as observe those interactions. And so what we're introducing is something called MuleSoft Governance for Agent Interactions, which is really an initiative to help you scale and manage all of those interactions across your enterprise, whether it's A2A, MCP, or whatever comes next, which wouldn't be surprised if new protocols emerge in the coming months at the rate that everything is moving. And so I think we can maybe just jump into talking about exactly what this means in real terms. And so we have, in the A2A aspect, we have a number of new policies to help you control those interactions. So one is protocol support, so to help which enables support for server-side events, as well as performs what I call kind of like a light version of schema validation. There's an agent card policy. So part of the A2A protocol is an agent card, which is a JSON file that describes the agent's resources and capabilities, but also describes the path to the agent. And so the agent card policy rewrites that card to ensure that all traffic will pass through Flex Gateway itself. And then we have a number of policies around PII to detect sensitive information, I believe using regex, as well as prompt decorators. So if you want to ensure consistent outputs, or maybe say limit the scope of what an agent might output, you can append prompts at the gateway level. And then finally, we have content logging with SSE. So enabling you to log content sent by the agents themselves. So thinking about the host agent in this interaction, as well as thinking about performance, so spike protection and rate limiting also. And so notionally, this is a very notional architecture. So So we could see the A2A connector fronting an agent that does not support A2A protocol. And then in front of that is Flex Gateway with these new A2A policies. And obviously on the left here, you could have multiple external accounting agents flowing through Flex Gateway, and Flex would be controlling those interactions. And so next we have a quick demo. I hope the audio works on this. And so this demo is this demo shows a customer success agent. So an agent that is external to an organization, and that agent is calling a host agent within a company. I think the company is called Acme Corp in the demo. And that agent's requests to the financial insights agents are routed through Flex Gateway, which is validating access for that agent through an IDP, which I believe in this case is Auth0. So let's play the demo. Let's see, 1 second.
Today, we'll see how an Acme Corp's chat agent can communicate with other agents on an A2A protocol securely. We'll see how we can enable authentication and authorization using flex policies on A2A agents and enforce them. The chat agent is configured to delegate customer prompts that are related to US stocks to a financial agent that we are governing using Flex. All of these agents talk using the A2A protocol. First, we use an Okta Auth0 tenant and we create two users, customer 1 and customer 2. For the purposes of the demo, we want to allow only customer 1 to use the host agent and not customer 2. So we note the user ID of customer 1 to allow list. We will use this later. Once the customers are created, we then create an API instance to represent our host agent that needs to be protected. Here, we can see the API endpoint that we have created. Note that the audience required, we will need this later to configure the Flex Gateway. Now, let's switch to the Flex Gateway where our endpoint is being governed. Here, we attach a JWT validation policy. The most important bits are the location of the JWKS. This allows Flex to validate the signature presented by the incoming request token. The audience we have to validate against, we want to ensure that the token being presented is for the resource that we are going to protect. This audience comes from the API that we just created on the Auth0 portal. Custom claims validation section. This is the authorization part where we will indicate what users must be allowed to access this endpoint. In this example, we are looking at this as subclaim, but it can be any valid claim that the token presents. So we can set our validations however we need over here. Now we switch over to the customer success portal. Let us log in as customer 1. Clicking login takes us to the Auth0 login page. We enter the credentials and we are logged in. Note the logged in user's name on the top. Now we ask the chat agent a stock related question. The chat agent delegates the request to finance agent we have protected using the Flex Gateway and send the request. Notice that the request has the authorization header here. We see that the call successfully completes. Now we log in as customer 2 and retry the same operation, and we see that it has failed. The network logs show that it was 401 unauthorized, indicating that the call was rejected for customer 2. We can also see these policy failures on the Flex Gateway's dashboard. Thank you.
Cool. So that was a quick look at how this might all come together using Flex Gateway.
Today,
So now let's answer some questions that you all have. Let's start with Isabella. Do you want to tee these up, or I can?
Totally up to you. I'm happy.
Okay, yeah, I can do it.
Okay.
First one, actually, this is for you, Isabella. Is this recording going to be shared with the attendees?
Yes, this recording will be shared out either later today or early tomorrow. It just kind of depends on how long it takes the recording to become available, and then we upload it to YouTube. I'll share that out in an email, and also if you're a member of our Slack workspace, I'll be posting it there as well.
Okay, awesome. So a couple questions around licensing. So is there a cost involved for the MCP or the A2A policies? Will they be separately licensed? Nope, these are all included and you can use them today. So that's the good news. Yeah, both the MCP and A2A policies are not separately licensed. Will these policies be involved in Mule Gateway as well? Don't have an answer on that at the moment, but obviously you all can help us influence our roadmap, and I'm going to bring that question back to our team. But we're definitely seeing some interest on the Mule Gateway side, obviously, and so I think don't have an answer today, but it's certainly a possibility. Manan, I'm going to toss this one to you. Question, will there be human intervention between agents? I think this may be a little bit more of a philosophical question than a true technical question as we look at the early days of A2A protocol, but curious your thoughts.
Absolutely. The intent is, the systems can be designed in a way that the agents interact with each other, obviously within specific guardrails that are created well within your design in Mule. However, if you are intending to have that human intervention, I'm certain that within a specific agent you always have the ability to create those quote unquote exit strategies that it routes back to a human.
Great. Just a couple more questions. So can an organization using the on-prem deployment model use managed Flex Gateway? Managed Flex as it exists today requires use of Cloud Hub 2.0. There's no other option. And so I think the only way to really use that would be to route that traffic away from your premises to Cloud Hub and back. And so that is the restriction today for managed Flex. I believe that will continue into the future, but good news is you can still use these policies with the self-managed version of Flex Gateway. Manan, back to you. What are the main use cases, and when is it worth using the MCP or A2A connectors?
So we wouldn't consider it's not so much about an MCP or A2A in this case. It's often complemented or complementary in nature. So let's say, for example, you do have an MCP server that you're looking to connect to. That's kind of where you use the Mule MCP connector. However, as you now have quote unquote an agent available, you also want to consider expanding that use case where one agent then talks to another. So in the previous slides, we looked at a procurement agent which may talk to an inventory agent or a finance or a resupply agent. So these systems are designed, or at least intended, to be cohesive with each other rather than go one up against the other.
Awesome. Next, a question from Victor. Do A2A and MCP have the same policies available? So that is a great question. The policies, when you compare the lists, are quite similar. I think that's due to some of the nature in the nature of both the protocols, as they use similar technologies or the same technologies, and so policies themselves are very similar. There's some minor differences when you compare the two lists of policies we have available for A2A and MCP. Another question from Victor. Philosophical question. Will MuleSoft's role be very different in the near future, since many software companies will provide MCP servers for their systems? I think that I think MuleSoft's role will continue to be very similar in the future. I think there are a number of systems that will not have MCP servers, and I think a number of our architectures, the investments that a lot of organizations have made in their architectures up until this point will continue to be valuable into the future. And so I think and not every system or not every solution will need to be an agentic solution. There's probably a good balance between having both deterministic and non-deterministic systems in the enterprise. And so I think there will continue to be a similar role for MuleSoft in the future, but that is my personal view. Let's see, have we gotten to most of the questions? Just a second. Okay, yeah, I think final two here. Does A2A API management work for managed Flex, Flex Gateway self-managed connected mode, and Flex Gateway self-managed local mode? We could circle back on this one, but I believe the policies that work in policies will work in all of those modes, but it's dependent on the nature of the policies themselves. But I believe they work in all of those modes. And then finally, is there training material or documentation anywhere that can use to learn more? So I believe all of this should be in the documentation at this point. I don't know if we have training material made just yet, like trailheads, but I think we can circle back on that one and post the links. Okay, oh, actually we have one more. Lana, I'm going to throw this one to you. So how can we add these features to existing MuleSoft products like API-led?
So there's a few ways you could do that, right? Is again, if you start out with any existing API-led driven architecture that you already have, turning it into an agentic experience can be done in one of two ways. Either through the MuleSoft AI chain connector, which effectively allows you to connect an LLM or add an agentic experience on top of it. You could also power it with some agent force directions, or if you want to go a completely different direction, an MCP based system. So let's say that you already have your own API today. You could spin it up into an MCP server. So there's quite a few options out there depending on where you're starting. Definitely want to say that MuleSoft has tools and availability no matter where you are within that journey.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's I think what's super cool, both thinking about A2A and MCP, is that it provides sort of the foundation for you to spin up resources using these protocols in an incredibly fast way. And so that is super exciting. And so it was a pretty organic transition from existing architectures to these new ones using the investments you already have. And so I think with that, we've covered all of the questions. Thank you all. Those are some really good questions.
We have one more.
We do.
Yeah, I think it just got shuffled in the order. Does the calling agent have to know what the called agent does? Is that the aspect of authentication in the A2A protocol? I would go ahead and tag this more as a discoverability component, where uh, each agent has, basically, let's call it like a menu card of sorts, which describes what is available within that agent. It also has some sample prompts available on, a scenario under which you would call that agent. So effectively, as the prompt is made, one agent now has the intelligence to go to the other one when it detects a specific prompt. Now, in terms of identifying and streamlining that communication of when does agent A talk to agent B, that's a very fast evolving direction industry wide, and definitely want to say that MuleSoft is also building up a direction and position on this.
Great, awesome. Thanks for that. Okay, I think we're getting got a lot on the list here. I think we covered most things, right?
I think there's just one last one around performance being a big issue.
Oh, I see. Oh, see that. Okay. Will A2A be faster than API-led architecture in terms of performance? That's a great question. Obviously, the systems within the architecture, I think, play a large part. And so when we think about how performant some models are, I think my personal view is that in the near term, they may not be faster. But Manan, do you have any thoughts on that?
I kind of think this is, coming back into obviously performance is an infrastructural question. I do feel that all of these technologies have the ability to be faster, but effectively we now have to think about the delta between a probabilistic and a deterministic approach.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's more of an opinion thing, on how many hops that your systems may have to make to get those pieces of information, and effectively how much firepower you put underneath it. Going through that API-led approach allows you to go laser focused and has a certain, seconds, for example, underneath it. But what really changes in an agentic world is you have the ability to give a simple programmed message of saying, hey, working on your request. And that's more or less working in real time. It's sharing what step it is on what process it is currently executing. So that journey becomes a lot more, human like, even though it is an agent in the back end.
Agreed, and I think there's definitely as you think about scaling some of these solutions, it makes sense to choose between having deterministic solutions for deterministic problems and agents for problems that the agents are well suited for solving, that are solving problems that are less discrete and clear. And so ultimately, maybe end up at a happy medium where you, from both a resource and consumption perspective, you end up at this happy medium that involves both agents and non-agents, that ultimately is a little bit more performant because you're not using agents just everywhere, but using them for the things that they do best. Cool. With that, I think we'll turn it back to you, Isabella.
Great, thank you both. My job's simple. Just to wrap things up, as a reminder, we will be sharing the recording either later today or early tomorrow. That'll come to you via email, or if you're a member of our Slack workspace, you'll see it there first. A big thank you to our presenters who I know are slammed with things to do at the moment. AI sleeps on no one, so they've been working their tails off, and we're just happy to have them here for an hour of their time. And then, of course, to our community, we appreciate you all for being here at all hours of the day for you across all areas of the world. We're so thankful for you, and we look forward to the next session. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.